So if you hear a pop pop in the background at some point, we're not under attack. Mr. Soap and Clay is using the compressor to nail some things up because he got to do that this afternoon. He got a short day at work and he came home and immediately started work because that's our life, really. So again, if you hear it, that's what it is. I might jump has nothing to do with what we're doing today. It is a recipe day, and I'm going to tell you all about it in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 288 of 365 days of soap, and today we are doing a recipe day, and that recipe is called Solid Conditioner, which is cool. So I have gotten lots and lots of questions on solid conditioner. I know that I did a video at the beginning of the channel and I gave you essentially one option for solid conditioner, but in reality you can do lots and lots of things with your solid conditioner recipes depending on what hair type you're really looking to, cater to. So let's get to the video today and we will give you a very cool recipe for one of my favorite conditioner bars, there. Okay, so first up, this recipe, a little bit confusing. These first four things, that's the base of your recipe. So if you want to make 30 ounces, for example, 50% BTMS, 10% wax, 20% butters, and your cetyl alcohols. And can you get that back in frame, please? And then you add to that 10% of an oil, 1% of your extract, 5% of your glycerin, 1% of your preservative, 1% of your panthenol, and then your scent and whatnot to taste. And so that would be your 30-ounce starter. And so you add up those, five things there, and that's your 30-ounce base. Now, then you take from that 30-ounce base, you put in your oils, your glycerin, your extracts, your preservatives, and your panthenol. So that ultimately ends up being about a 38-ounce batch. A little bit confusing. We're going to talk about all of this. First up, this is BTMS. Specifically, this is BTMS 50. Next up, we have an E-wax. You can use whatever you want in this. An emulsifying wax, a beeswax, whatever, a wax. Then your shays and your cocos, your butters. For this particular thing. I like shea and cocoa for this because this is my thin hair recipe. And then finally, you're adding in your cetyl alcohol. Now, I like to take the extra stuff that you're going to put in. So your castor, your glycerin, your extract, your preservative, your panthenol, and put it in a separate container and mix it all up really good with a mixer. Is it necessary? I mean, yeah, I guess technically because we're messing with the panthenol, which is a dry ingredient, which you will see shortly. But regardless, you want to make sure that everything's well blended. And I like to put in all of these liquid ingredients to the heated, BTMS and your waxes and your butters and your cetyl alcohols that have been heated, and because melted, you have to melt all of those things. So I like to make sure that these are all very well blended because I tend to add them in cold. So yeah, I just take my little thing to it. But I put the little whippy whip attachment on it and not the regular, emulsifier head. You get it. And then we'll add that to the heated oils and butters and, waxes and things. So let's go to the pour and we will talk more about what BTMS is and cetyl alcohol, because those are probably the things that are going to be most confusing to you. So let's go there. Okay, so first up, what is BTMS? What's BTMS 25? What's BTMS 50? What's the difference? Okay, first and foremost, BTMS is naturally derived, and it is naturally derived from rapeseed oil, and then like cetyl alcohol and stearyl alcohol are, combined with it. Those are the inactive ingredients, the cetyl alcohol and the stearyl alcohol. All are great for conditioning agents. This is also a positively charged effectively emulsifier. So if you wanted to get rid of the BTMS in totality, you could totally just use an e-wax, but also pay attention to the ingredients of e-wax because most of them have BTMS in it. But, whatever. What is the active ingredient in BTMS? Well, the active ingredient is, again, derived from rapeseed oil, and it is bihentrimonium methosulfate. And the 25% or the 50% really just means the amount of the bihentrimonium methosulfate that is in the total batch. Is it natural? Well, that depends on, what country you live in, as well as what you consider natural or not. Again, all plant derived. Cetyl alcohol is mostly palm derived, so pay attention to that. It is also a nice conditioning agent. Very, very great for things like flyaways, which makes it, that makes sense in something that is positively charged in the BTMS solution, but also we have a secondary thing with cetyl alcohol in this. We will do a whole ass video on the differences between cetyl alcohol and cetyl alcohol in an FAQ in the coming days, I promise. But basically what all of this means with the cetyl alcohol, the BTMS, what we are doing is looking for emulsifiers and conditioning agents, because that's really what they all do. Notice how I whisked the crap out of this with my, immersion stick and did the thing. And notice the foam. Normally, what I do with this is I just sit. I let it sit after I've done a mixing for around 2 minutes and let those bubbles kind of die down. The thing that I was spraying on them, that is rubbing alcohol, that tends to make the bubbles go away. But for this particular instance, I thought it could be fun to pour it without waiting or kind of folding in all of the extra bubbles to see what we get. And as you can see, the liquids themselves, they sort of pour underneath the bubbles. Are you losing anything in all of that? Yeah, I feel like you are. I feel like really what you're losing in all of this is really the panthenol and some of the lighter weight molecules within the BTMS solution itself. And so what I would recommend is stirring it in, like hand stirring it in, and getting rid of some of those bubbles about 5 minutes after you give it a nice emulsion blend. You don't have to, though, I guess, because I'm going to show you, what you ultimately end up with at the end of all of this by just pouring out really what's left. And what's left is going to be those foamy bits. And you can take your rubbing alcohol and get rid of your bubbles, just like you would do at the top of a melt and pour, or like you would do on the top of a cold process soap, just to make sure that there's no soda ash. The rubbing alcohol dissipates, it does its thing, it goes away, so there's no rubbing alcohol left in this. But again, we're dealing with a number of alcohol compounds, stearyl alcohol being the biggest one within all of this. But whatever you can do. Let's see what these guys do after they firm up and what the foam bits look like versus, you know, the liquid bits, really. Okay, it's not a cut, it's a firm, and within a couple hours, these things will have completely firmed up. Now, here's what it looks like with the parts that are just all foam, because as you saw with that last one that I poured out, all foam. It's very, very spongy for sure. And I actually did take this into the shower and used it on myself as well as Soap and Clay Kidlets, the foamy bits. And yeah, it was fine. Like, it felt like a lot of conditioning and not nearly what we wanted within all of this. So my recommendation would be still to go ahead and slowly stir all of those extra bubbles back into the solution, maybe even stir it while you pour it. I think that's what I showed you in my first conditioner recipe, but I also think in my first conditioner recipe, I gave you a 100% no matter what. It is an all-natural conditioner bar recipe using shea butters and, you know, beeswax or Candelilla wax or, you know, whatnot. So this is another way to do it. I quite like the conditioning agents that come from your BTMSs and your cetyl or cetearyl alcohols. It provides a nice barrier, but you can always play with these and really eliminate a fair amount of them. For example, cetyl alcohol, technically you can go ahead and sub out in this particular recipe just stearic acid. You can do that. For the BTMS, which is half the damn batch, right? You can sub in a blend of waxes, your bees, your Candelilla, your other like co-emulsifying waxes, and that's completely fine. I like to use this formulation because it's easy, because you don't have to think a lot about this. And so, but as far as the oils go too, you really do start blending those based on what kind of hair type you're looking for. This is my thin hair recipe, and so I really wanted that castor to essentially thicken up the hair after you're done shampooing. And there it is, a reasonably easy peasy lemon squeezy conditioner bar recipe that is now yours to play with and try and, you know, do all the conditioner things with. For sure, when you are formulating a conditioner bar recipe, just like when you're forming a shampoo bar, be it a Syndet, something that has synthetic detergents in it, or an all-natural, for either one, really what you do have to start with is what kind of hair type am I going for here? What is this bar meant to do? Because as we all know, we all have different hair types, and what works for one hair type might not work for another. So always keep that in mind and play around with the fatty acid profiles as well as the conditioning agents, your cetearyl alcohols, your cetyl alcohols, etc., your BTMSs, what have you, accordingly, for sure. But this is a pretty good jumping off point, and as I explained in the video, it's something that you can definitely kind of work with and sub out some oils reasonably easy. So there's that. If you make it, hey, let me know how it goes for you. I'm really interested. Talk to me about it in the comments. That would be cool. If you're interested in seeing what other recipes we have coming up, we actually do have one coming up in just a few days, you know, subscribe. And then you'll be reminded and notified when I drop that video. For those of you who are already subscribed, hey, thanks, Sudzers. You're reminded and notified when I drop all videos. So that's cool. I appreciate that you guys came to hang out with me today. It's always, always such a cool time. This is my favorite part of the day, getting to be with you. And, you know, thanks for doing that. I am out of here for today. I should probably go help Mr. Soap and Clay with all the things he needs to do. But I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.